Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Amanda Carlson, and I'm the Marketing Coordinator here at Advisicon, and I'd like to welcome you all to today's webinar. Here at Advisicon, we are a group of authors, teachers, consultants, and technologists offering training of the Microsoft technologies such as Project, Office 365, Power BI, Visio, and SharePoint, as well as project management and methodology. With attending any of our training sessions, we offer PDUs as we are a registered education provider with the Project Management Institute. And at the close of today's session, I will give some instructions on how you can claim your PDUs and how to get in contact with us for any questions you may have. Now, before we get started, we'll go over a few things so you know how to participate in today's event. Please review the control panel that should be on the top right of your screen. The audience is muted during this session, so in order to ask questions, you will need to submit them in the questions window of the control panel. This webinar will be recorded and uploaded on the Advisicon YouTube channel for those who could not attend today's session live. Please note that any questions or comments submitted will not display in the recording, nor will any of your personal information be shared. And it's now my pleasure to introduce today's instructor, Tim Runcie, Advisicon's very own president. And without further ado, I'll hand this over and we can get started.
Wonderful. Thanks, Amanda. Appreciate that. And welcome everyone to our webinar Wednesday. Looking forward very much to kind of beginning the process of helping you understand what is about to come, especially with project technology. So one of the things that's been going on for the last couple of years is Microsoft has been wrestling with kind of making sure they are compliant worldwide with things like GDPR and other regulations, and then standardizing how they operationalize and roll out their products, making sure they have a strong platform. We're going to talk a little bit about that because there's some announcements that were made earlier last year that triggered a lot of questions about what's going on, what's happening, where's Microsoft going, what's this Dynamics thing we hear about, what's CDS, what's CDM, et cetera, et cetera. So we'll talk about the direction of digital transformation. I think it'll make a lot of sense, and for those of you that are using Office 365 or using Project or using some of the different tools out there, you begin to start seeing that these worlds are starting to merge. I like to refer to it as a house without walls. The idea is that you'll work productivity in one room, you'll go to another room, but you don't have to unlock, close the application, shut the door, relaunch it, set all your settings up. You just go from room to room to room. There are no walls, except hopefully in the bathroom. Other than that, there are some security elements that are important based upon who you are when you log in. So we'll talk about the future elements. We'll talk about Agile. That seems to be a very hot button, and there's a lot going on with Agile and Agile capabilities and the horizon in terms of what's happening. And then I say horizon, it is on the horizon. This isn't just something that is planning discussions about where Microsoft's going with ERP systems and connected systems. It literally has a timeline that they're working towards that will happen this year. So we're seeing a lot of these things starting to emerge, be released. And if I've got a little bit of time, I'm going to take some questions. I am very, very excited potentially that if we need to go and do some other questions offline, or if we need to talk about doing some demos, that you can reach out to Advisicon or our team anytime and maybe dig a little bit deeper. A lot of people are planning, a lot of organizations are planning of how to take advantage and be prepared for that. So this is the beginning of some of the big announcements that are coming. And if I've got a little bit of time, I'll squeeze in a couple live demos of some information or tools that are just starting to release. So some things around the integration between project technologies. Okay, so in a nutshell, Microsoft has been doing lots of enhancements. In fact, they've been doing this since they bought the product back in the 1980s, rolled it out into a Windows-based environment in first version of Project in the early 90s, and continued to look at innovation and adding accessibility. In the 2000 era, of course, adding the ability to have a project server. Now we suddenly integrated with SharePoint. And then this move to the cloud, which really says we are able to support 30,000 Microsoft projects in an environment. These are conversations that we're always asking about, is how do they operationalize, how do they streamline, how do they continue to better the technology? However, we're talking about where is this momentum going? What is the drive? What's going to happen to the project, program, and portfolio management world that's out there? So as we look at the release of what we call future investments, Microsoft Project 2019, or what we call the latest bits that are kind of rolling out at the end of FY18, and certainly if you're in online, you're going to see some new things kind of emerging on an ongoing basis with the Project Pro for Office 365. But there's continued enhancements and elements that are being turned on. So to step back into kind of the direction, remember that Microsoft PPM, right? That's not just a single particular product, but project itself is designed to help you ideate, meaning do brainstorming, what if scenarios, plan, and then be able to take proposals and move them forward. And if you look the life cycle spectrum, the idea is that when is a project, and when do we need to have information about that? I'll talk a little bit more about that later. Of course, getting into and selecting a portfolio, figuring out how we rank and prioritize our project and project initiatives, certainly all within the portfolio analyzer that comes with project or project server. And then, of course, if you approve a project, gets selected, it moves forward into an execution phase, then the real work happens. The team members are coming in, they're collaborating, there might be agile activities, you might have people working in different tools like Azure, in terms of Azure DevOps, they might be using Teams, they might be using Planner, but there's this connectedness that brings everything back to the Microsoft Project PPM resource pool and the environment. Now, what's nice about this is with the emergence of Power BI, is we're seeing that ability to not only have APIs that can connect to different environments and bring those in, hence the product called Roadmap, which we just began announcing and doing webinars on, but also the idea of having analytics and begin to start learning from that information. So Microsoft continues to innovate across the entire technology spectrum. What's important to understand is the direction for project program and portfolio technologies is really, it's not just this short sprint dropping a few features. There really is this massive epic of launching an integrated platform and streamlining what we call the code base. So the intent is that it's not just about project and then maybe a little bit of SharePoint here and okay, we got some reports in Power BI, but we're talking about integration with Flow. The ability to automate across all of the Office 365 tools, Power Apps, creating automation, visuals, touch points, and moving and automating and making data work. So creating your own applications. You have technical and development teams that are working in a very much Kanban-esque or Scrum board environment with Visual Studio. And then you have me and some other people who have like a to-do list that they need to keep a check of, as well as they might jump all the way out and say, look, I need to actually have resource demand and capacity planning put together. But our teams collaborate in using Skype or they're using Microsoft Teams. So there's these tools that a project manager or a project management office works with on an ongoing basis. At the bottom here, you'll notice something that says Dynamics PSA integration. And there is an integration right now between Microsoft Project and Dynamics PSA, which stands for Project Service Automation. So what we need to understand is what is the actual impact and the direction that we're going. So to help you kind of get your arms and legs around some of this, I brought up what we call the technology landscape or the roadmap of the periodic table for Office 365. And if you look here, you'll find lots of these pictures out there. In fact, I think we've even done some blog posts where we've written some of the descriptions. If you click on the box, it'll actually launch directly in there and tell you what to do and what planner and what project does. But these are designed to increase business and personal professional productivity. Now, look closely in the upper left-hand corner at something called Dynamics 365. You see it says ERP, kind of a Salesforce competitor, and CRM, right? We talk about an accounting system and a CRM system. And I'm going to come back to that because this is an important element that brings some things that are very necessary to do good program and project management, especially as we start talking about earned value. So while Microsoft at a feature level has been adding a couple products, we talk about Roadmap, we talked about Planner, and then some of the capabilities within these tools is that there is an agile component of what's being built in. And of course, all of these will derive their data, surface it, and what I'm pretty excited about is after having written white papers, and of course, Advisicon has done lots of ERP integration, is that we're finding that the ability to bridge technology systems or ecosystems or even technology vendor platforms, right? So I'm going to Oracle, I'm running over to SQL, or I'm connecting data between two different environments, is that Power BI brings a very robust ability to say, I don't care where your data is, Let me give my PMs a dashboard where they need to see it. Where before there was this whole extract and transform the data, scrub it, error check it, and then drag it over and drop it into a project schedule or jam it into a project server or a project online environment. So we're going to see that the technology landscape is providing some things that we didn't have before. So with the upcoming changes, this is where I really think you need to pay close attention to what is coming and what's going on. And then think about, what does that mean for you? What does that mean for your organization? Now I'm going to throw a little poll here because I like to find a little bit about what people want to do. So again, if you remember, the controls in your webinar session here allows you to vote. So let me launch a poll. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to have you answer that. So let me open the poll, open right now. There should be a question that says, if you had to pick, what would be your most requested feature for Project PPM? And I want you to think forward facing, but maybe reaching back into the past for some of the pain that you've run. So I want people to kind of vote here, and then I will share the results because I think it's going to be helpful for you guys to see here. So looks like we've got some numbers coming in here. I'm going to keep this open for a while. I want to make sure everybody has a chance. Looks like we got about 65% of people who voted. Amanda, go ahead and start calling people who haven't voted. We'll do that, right? I'm kidding, of course. So is it connected with my accounting system for actuals? Am I really trying to manage my resources better? Resource management capabilities and forecasting. Hey, listen, project is powerful, but maybe the interface just doesn't do it for me. And then, maybe I can just have it do all my work for me. I just show up, sit down, grab my cup of coffee, and I watch a dashboard, and things just kind of transform. All right, I think I've got most everybody in here, so I'm going to, oh, somebody just voted there. All right, close the poll, here it comes. And now I'm going to share the results. So it looks like, if you're looking at your GoToMeeting poll here, it says that 18% of folks think that, connecting with my accounting system for actuals would be helpful. Now think about that. Not every project manager has to go and read what the actuals are, bring them back, and compare what Microsoft Project said. So the plan versus what actually has happened. You might be progressing the deliverables, you might be monitoring the work or work effort, but sometimes the idea of sometimes bridging over to an ERP system is actually pretty daunting to think about. 32% of you said that resource management capabilities would be a huge enhancement. And I think this is really nice to see that right smack dab in the middle, we have two peaks: better resource management and easier to use interface, the idea of getting in, getting out, and working with the pieces. Some of you are smart and said 9% of you said, hey, just do my work for me. And I think that means that you're partly fast track for an executive position at the organization you work with. And so other people said all the above. So with the information that we're sharing in terms of our data components, let me hide my results here real quickly, is that as we think about where project is going, where the Microsoft engineering team is going, where even Microsoft is going, is that there's a lot of activities. We talk about Planner, you'll hear about Azure environments, we see the Power BI and Office 365 tools, and Visual Studio, now called DevOps, where you used to have the former Team Foundation server embedded between there. But I wrote something in here called the Task Fabric, and I think this is a term that's been used quite a long time. I didn't invent it, but the idea is that there is Task Fabric, tracking where things get done. Is it a punch list? Is it an Outlook task list? Is it something that's in a formal schedule? And as we begin looking at the emergence of what I call cool tools here, cool features, some of these have already started to roll out in the PPM stack, but also in supporting that stack. So one of the things that happened last year was that there was an announcement that the Microsoft engineering team made about their transition to what they call CDS or CDM, meaning we're talking about a common data service and a common data model. And in a nutshell, think of it this way. A common data model means that we're going to standardize the database tables. So when I say start date, this is what start date is between Dynamics or Planner or Project or anything that's using a start date. We use the same kind of reference point. And a common data service is kind of like the engine that says, hey, when you go to the interface and you progress data, I'm not going between, say, Word and Excel and PowerPoint, and I have a wildly different experience. But for example, if you were to create good old VBA, write a macro, the same experience, the same language that we use in Office to automate might have different phraseology, or you might have different objects or methods that you refer to in Word than PowerPoint. But again, you're still using that same structure for managing and running that application. So they call this modern project and modern work management, which is how do we help people quickly get in, map their projects, schedule the work, make sure we have visibility to it, and then we track time and expense, we look at what resources are doing, and we even drill into the approvals or the review of what's going on. Under the scenes, and this is really the thing that a lot of people were kind of concerned about, and I really said, you know, Microsoft is going to continue to innovate, right? We should not be worried necessarily of the fact that they're going to make their engine run a little bit better. Hey, listen, it's a 4-cylinder, we're going to move to a 6-cylinder. What the end user experience is when they get in the car, they open the door, they sit behind the steering wheel is, hey, listen, do I now have a cup holder? And hey, look, I actually can see some of my Wi-Fi information showing up here. I've got a better looking dashboard. What is it? But my experience is I'm still driving a car. I'm doing the things that I've done and have done since cars came out to things in the future, but I'm still driving. I've got a vehicle to get me where I'm going. So Power Apps helping to move information or create application, and again, having a standard language. Think about this from a PMO perspective. If you are going to build a project management office, the whole intent is to standardize the tools, streamline the process, and make sure that you can measure and track that. And this is exactly what Microsoft's doing. Now, with that in mind, I'm going to introduce a little bit of the future of what's coming. So Dynamics 365 deals with multiple elements here. You'll see where it says field service, where I'm scheduling crews and trucks to go do work. I do sales. I have proposals. I'm tracking sales. I might have a CRM environment where I'm doing customer service, where I have activities that are going on. And maybe I have work scheduling. And of course, you've got an accounting system that we need to work with. So the intent, and this is really important, is that the project, program, and portfolio world does not exist outside of accounting. It does not exist outside of people scheduling their teams to do work. It doesn't exist outside of organizations writing proposals or tracking customers. They're all part of that pendulum and life cycle. So where Microsoft's driving to is to say, hey, look, if we can bring project management, the Microsoft project environment, and connect it in the same language, the same platform, the same backend database as we're using our accounting system, our marketing, our sales, our CRM, our field crews and scheduling, and of course, resource management, this makes it much easier for us to slip back and forth between these and provide the capabilities to maybe that people didn't have access to. So an example of this, in fact, I just brought a couple screenshots here. This is called Dynamics PSA, right? So we look at a Gantt chart. Well, I'm actually in Dynamics looking at a project server automation, and I actually have a Gantt chart of task and task information. Now, if you think about this, this might be a life cycle where I'm writing a proposal and I'm getting it approved and I'm working through the details and I'm getting a quote and then I plan, I deliver, I complete. And I sure would like my people to track their time against this, but remember, they track time in the accounting system over there where they timesheet at a very high level, which might be a work order or a PO level. Well, there's not much difference between people tracking time at a task level in Microsoft Project and some of the accounting elements. In fact, if we're doing this, why can't I just use Outlook to go to my calendar and see what I'm supposed to be doing and right-click on a task and actually update my information, actually progress my timesheet? And since we're using Active Directory, or since we're using a common resource pool and we can connect our systems, right behind here you can actually see a heat map of resource availability. That would be tracking things that you're working on that would be non-project related. It might be off time or vacation. It could be project related. But the idea is that blending these pieces together is absolutely on the roadmap and the horizon for project. And what that means is the power of the scheduling engine in Project Server, Project Online, Microsoft Project is now being made available to support accounting projects or these little task lists that have been tracked in other places. In fact, as Microsoft continues to innovate, the drive is to take and create what we call the new look and feel for Microsoft Project. You're seeing a picture right here of kind of the modern look of Project. And the idea, and it's not necessarily going to happen today, but is if we can give you the full power of Microsoft Project Professional Desktop, but give it to you in a web environment, why would I have to have a client? I can just do everything from my mobile device. I still want to split my screens. I still want a timeline view. I still want to sort, filter, and group. And so as they begin setting up a new environment and connecting with that and making these other features available, they're taking advantage of the latest technology and the latest platform to innovate and move that forward. So where Microsoft going is talking about adding some significant elements here, talking about connecting with accounting or connecting with an ERP system, bringing in resource management, and also looking at the entire customer relationship management lifecycle, saying, hey, when a project starts, it isn't when we just fire up a Microsoft project schedule, or maybe we have Planner that we're using in the background. I want to be able to marry or blend these together. So some of the newly released PM technologies that you haven't seen certainly talks about roadmap. If you haven't seen some of our Webinar Wednesday roadmap pieces, we've got a full session where we spend quite a bit of time here. But the look and feel of adding a product that comes with a project license that says, you know what? I can bring in work activities that are coming from an Azure DevOps environment. I don't have to build it in a Microsoft project. I don't even have to move the data. I can span the bridge between different applications like Planner or Jira, or I can go out and bring in other things and create a visual roadmap that shows me where we're at. In fact, I could add my own dates or own activities. And we control this based upon who has access to what you see. Again, talking about even embedding a roadmap within a roadmap. So from a visualization is that we're taking a look right now of roadmap, and the idea is that we can actually bring in activities that come from different tenants. So if you have different organizations or you're a very large company and you might have Latin American operations, you might have European operations, you might have North American operations, and the idea is I want to bring all this together in a roadmap. I can bring the schedules, the milestones, the activities, and pull those together. And of course, that purpose brings the ability for visibility, giving us a foundation. We can launch and manage this from a home page, and doesn't matter what methodology we're using to manage the tactical work or work activities, we're able to surface and connect that information in a view that manages program. Well, if we have program data, then I can actually look at resource and capacity planning. One of the things here, in fact, I had a screen I was going to show you, but why don't I just show it to you live? I'm just dying to show you these things. If you hop into Teams, of course, Microsoft Teams allows you to come in and create conversation. You can upload files, which again, remember, these files are sitting and going into a SharePoint environment, which is kind of hiding on the back end. We can embed Power BI. We can even launch and add a planner schedule to a team. So as we begin to organize and plan conversations, we can do this. But let's take a look at some of the newer technologies that are kind of moving in here. If you haven't seen this in terms of resource management, we can start thinking about using things like Microsoft Shifts, where, hey, look, I just have some scheduling that I need to do, and I need to plan where those resources are working on. So whether I'm looking at a day at a glance, or I'm looking at a week or a month, a view, is I can go between here, and again, I'm still in Teams. I'm doing a little bit of lightweight resource management, doing some lightweight agile task management. I have the power of SharePoint where I can connect, collect, and gather my files and documents, centralize one place. I have threaded conversations, and oh, by the way, I can spin up a webinar or I can spin up a conversation and interact with people directly. Again, beginning to move and connect this with project is going to be huge. So with an idea of some of these type of things moving together, giving you kind of a taste of what's coming from a future project, I want people to begin to think of a broader spectrum, which is, what is your life cycle? It's not just when I get a charter and the charter's signed and I bring a project manager and I drop them on a project and say, okay, now we start our planning phase. There's a lot of things that are happening in that life cycle pendulum. So let me take a moment here, Amanda. I do want to answer some questions. And if you guys want to go to your chat window and just type up some questions, I'm sure I probably won't be able to answer everything that comes in, but I'll take as much time as we have today, and then what we'll do is we'll dig in a little bit deeper. We can take some of this offline for you. And even if it means that you need a little bit of a deeper demo on some of the integrated pieces, I know our team is happy to help answer that because there are a lot of opportunities of the tools coming together, especially on the new platform. So Amanda, do you see any questions? Let me see if I can see from my end here. Sometimes I can't see them.
Yeah, we have a couple here.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll start with this one. It says, is shifts currently something in Teams?
Shifts did not used to belong in Teams, and now it is. So Microsoft moved, it was an older product, and they took it and they've embedded that in Teams. So let me bring that back up for those of you guys that are doing maybe some lightweight agile projects. And maybe your Microsoft project schedule has, hey, I've got a 3-week sprint, I've got resource loading there, and the details are really managed in Planner or Teams. So if I come over here, typically if you're in a team environment, you'll see a little 3 ellipses here, and if you click on it, you can add the app for shifts and literally launch into this, and you can pick different types. So great question, but the short answer is yep, you'll go right here to find where that is, and it is available now. Other questions, Amanda?
Yeah, we have one regarding one of your very early slides in the deck, the timeline slide. Just asking for a little more clarification if Kanban boards and Power BI content packs are a part of 2016.
If Kanban boards, so let's just jump over to Microsoft Project for just a moment. And do we have Kanban boards, and what was the other one, Amanda?
Power BI content packs.
Ah, yes. Okay. So let me show Power BI first. We'll talk about that. So if you're using Project Online, for example, this is the report pack that's available now. Basically, if you buy a single license of Project and you start building and publishing it into the enterprise environment, you can connect a whole series of dashboards. In fact, if you look at the bottom here, I have a whole series of these that point to both your SharePoint sites and your project sites. So this is out of the box, but it is for Project Online. So when the question was, is it 2016? You can take these off. You can point them to an on-premise server if you really wanted to work through that. But these are not, these are embedded for kind of the online experience. And then the second part of that question, or maybe the first part, was really, hey, when I come into Microsoft Project, it's great to be able to have some of those views, but how about looking at that sprint planning board or that task board? Can I actually come in here and say, hey, if I move tasks here, I can kind of organize with a Kanban board, kind of the structure of what we're doing, drag these task activities around. Or maybe we really are in a sprint planning environment and I want to kind of move between sprint 1, sprint 2, sprint 3. Where am I doing it? Putting on the backlog. And so this capability exists in Project Pro for Office 365. It is not wired for the on-premise environment, at least at this time. So something to consider is that, when you go and get your licensing, there's a lot of ways to do it. I know some of you guys might be coming from on-premise. Some of you might be using some of the older pieces, but this is really designed for the latest licensing from there. You don't have to publish a project schedule to that enterprise environment. In fact, if I come up here and go, hey, let's do a save, I can certainly put it into, like, for example, my enterprise environment, or you can put it in OneDrive or a local desktop. But the idea is that that's what you're going to have access to as you kind of put those pieces together. And if you're thinking about using Planner to kind of connect some of these together, let me just switch to a Gantt chart, is while you still have the same capabilities of your database here, I'll zoom this real quickly. You can also take activities, instead of building them completely in the project schedules, you say, hey, you know what, I have an entire planner board. I'm just going to connect this task there. And if you'd like to see what's going on, go and check out the planner board. And then we've got charts and visibility and assignment information. So great, kind of a broad question in terms of where does that license exist? Maybe one more question.
Well, we are coming near the end of our time, so I think we should summarize.
You have one more for me? We can squeeze one more in. Any more? Bueller, going once, going twice?
Let's do one more. How do you connect the TFS tasks in the new PWA?
How do you connect the TFS tasks? Okay, remember, TFS is now called Azure DevOps. And when you get a version of Microsoft Project, what you'll be able to do, in fact, we're kind of playing here, is that if I go into the project homepage, again, this is for Project Online, is that you'll be able to create something called a roadmap. And when you click on New, you can open that roadmap. So if I come down here into my FY19 strategic plan, and I bring this open, this is where I will go and pull in that information. So here I can begin to start lining up, what are the initiatives? What am I working on? What are the key deliverables? What are those key dates? And if you want to add something, for example, I want to add a row, It's going to ask you where it's going to come from, and it might just say, hey, this is my Azure, forget the A there, Azure DevOps Epic plan. And it wants to know who you are because it's important whether you have permission to actually see that environment. And then you'll come right here. And what is exciting about this is that right now I've got two options here, but this is going to grow. You're going to see Planner, you're going to see Jira, you'll see other things beginning to emerge as they continue to update and as project begins to kind of expand that flexibility. But you can see right here we've got our Azure boards, which allows me to jump in directly into an Azure environment, an Azure DevOps environment where I can come in, pick a project, grab features. Again, I have Kanban boards and things that I work with, but that's where your technical teams go to. So great question, Amanda. Thanks for letting me squeeze that one in here. Let me do this. I'll kind of return back and summarize. So the importance here is that the life cycle of how we get work done in project program and portfolio management is not always contained just in a project schedule. There's a lot of tools that are the right tools to do things where maybe Microsoft Project is used for portfolio modeling and selection, demand and capacity planning, but then you want to do agile, lightweight task management, or your technical teams will never work in Microsoft Project. The platform shifts and changes that are coming are going to not only introduce new capabilities to project by bringing the dynamic suites together, but it's also going to be project and its capabilities and make them accessible to, say, ERP systems. So using roadmap and other areas, and again, Microsoft's drive is to first start with all of this in the online environment. So that's where you're going to find that first. So it's very exciting to kind of see these things coming, and again, we will have deeper and more broader deep dives to coming over the next series of months, but be looking for things to be definitely emerging here this summer. So I think this is really kind of giving everyone notice that there's a lot of capabilities that are coming, and if you've been struggling with this, you may want to dig a little bit deeper or give us a call and ask a few questions of how you can leverage that. So Amanda, let me turn this back over to you, and I appreciate your time today to help us set this up. Go ahead, Amanda.
Yeah, thanks everyone for attending today's webinar. We welcome your questions and feedback, and for more information, you can email us at contact@advisicon.com. Once you exit today's webinar, you will receive a survey on the presentation, and you will need to complete and submit this survey in order to receive your PDUs. From there, you will receive a follow-up email within 2 business days with your PDU information. If you're watching this recording on YouTube or another social media platform, please be sure to like and subscribe so that you don't miss out on any future uploads. And on behalf of Advisicon, Tim, and myself, we thank you for joining us today, and we hope to see you participate in our future webinars. Have a great day, everyone.
Thanks now.